Hi folks, hi, welcome back to a strategy and policy meeting of, I don't even know the date, 21st of August. Time flies. Yes indeed. Thank you, Councillor. Just a brief whakatauki to start the morning. Apologies for my pronunciation as usual. Whatunga ronga rota tangata toitu te whenua, which means as man disappears from sight, the land remains. Let us remember that in our discussions today. Do we have any apologies? We have Councillor Morrison.
Councillor Harold.
And Chairman Harold. Would you like to move those, please? Thanks. Councillor McPhail, seconded please. Councillor Roy. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Any extraordinary declarations of interest? Anything else that we're not aware of for today's discussion? Great. We have no public forums, petitions and deputations, so we can move to the confirmation of minutes of the 2nd of July meeting. Feels like a really long time ago. Thank you, Councillor Cook. Councillor McDonald, any discussion or corrections? Great. I'll put that then. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. I've had no notifications of extraordinary or urgent business and no questions. Are there any councillor reports? Anybody been to anything interesting? Councillor McPhail, you mentioned something yesterday.
About the conurbation.
Yes.
I can do that again. I just went to the Wyndham Conurbation Day. Really, I've been to one every year just to see how it's been presented and people's understanding of all the rules and that. That was really good. It was good to see more people there, but actually the staff did a really good job presenting, and we went out on the farm to see really good management practices in regards to the buffer zones and that. So it's always good to get on the farm, and it was a wet day. There was a wee bit of coloration in the grass and things like that, but it was still good examples, and it's I think people were grasping so not just simple rules, but people understanding why the rules are there. I think that's the main thing. So that was good. And so staff did a good job.
Thank you. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, just want to ask Jeremy, was there a lot of contractors there? Was the majority being contractors?
The few contractors, not a huge amount of people, but as the dairy industry's flat out at the moment, so you're not going to get dairy farmers, and there was one farmer from up your way actually had come down to it. So as I say, it's just trying to keep on reaching. You've got to keep on doing these things, because even if you get 2 or 3 people coming along, it's still 2 or 3 people knowing more in the community what's right and what's wrong, so to speak, around rules. So
Thanks. Councillor Gibson, did you have something?
Yeah, just to state that we've finished all the judging for the awards. We've done our deliberations. No money will extract the winners. You'll have to find that out on October the 3rd.
Thanks, Councillor, and I can't express how much I've missed being involved in that this time. It's been quite strange. So I look forward to your wise and clever presentations.
It's putting us on a pedestal.
No pressure. No pressure at all. All right. Anybody else got a report? Okay. Then we'll move into. Oh, sorry. No. 9.1, which is the further review of the Fiordland Marine Regional Pathway Management Plan, which is quite a mouthful of a title. And unfortunately, Catherine is very ill, so we have a number of people who will be speaking to the reports today. So apologies, they will be slightly in catch-up mode, especially Lucy, who stayed back after 3 weeks after some absence. Yes, so welcome back, Lucy, to the fire. Councillor Cook?
I have a moment of ignorance here, reading through the papers the other day. I see residual seawater standards in Rule 2. I don't understand that. Perhaps I haven't done my homework.
Right, so maybe we can come back to that,
That's
somebody.
part 2 under the summary.
Okay.
Somebody could explain it to me.
So, through you, Chair, we've got Vendetta online as well, who has been assisting the team with some of this. So I'm happy to do an intro, and then if there's technical questions, Vendetta will be able to hopefully help. Can you hear us okay, Vendetta? Perfect, okay. So thank you for the consideration of this. As I said, I'm just back today, so just looking at the paper today, I've got David Adamson here and Marcus too, who can hopefully help if we have other questions about how this interplays with the coastal plan review timeline changes. To answer Councillor Cook's question about the residual seawater standards in Rule 2, that relates specifically to the coastal plan review and was going to be being adjusted as part of that coastal plan review. And it's about how we actually monitor those two things. So that's from the historic recommendation or the resolution to the last S&P meeting back in February. So I can find out a bit more information about what it relates to. So through you, Chair, obviously this has been going through a process over a number of years, and you'll see in the paper the detailed steps that we have to go through in terms of reviewing these kinds of plans. You also see it's one of the suite of things that the government is currently looking at to streamline. We've got a 5-year review, and over the last couple of years, the team's intention was to align it with the coastal plan review. So those things are the reason why they're bringing this paper back to us again, so that you can receive the report, but the first phase is to give you more information to start the development of an expanded pathway plan. So it's about developing that proposal for the next phase. So it's that the team want to get cracking with in the interim whilst we get some more certainty. So that's probably enough from me. Bernetta might want to jump in. Otherwise, if you've got any questions, Council, happy to take them.
Bernetta, did you have anything to contribute at this point?
I might just refer back to the earlier resolution. Hello, everyone. Just back to the earlier resolution. So, in essence, we're just coming back to committee to provide an update on some of the work that's been undertaken and to have a reconfirmation, as it were, of your resolution in 2024, so that we have officially recorded that we are meeting that first in terms of developing a proposal. So the work in essence is the same, but we're just wanting to have that certainty in terms of record keeping that you have approved us under that provision of the Act. So that's the reason for coming back at this point.
Thanks, that's a great explanation, thanks. Questions, councillors? Councillor Rodway?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, this is obviously some upgrading of this is needed, and there's a few items in here on pages 13 and 14 that are relevant. Ideally, I think we've always thought, I have anyway, and I think others have as well, that for an effective plan that controls the movement of unwanted organisms on the hulls of boats, it really needs to be something that all regional councils do over the whole country, so that everybody is doing the same thing. And so if we've got boats coming in from other places that don't have the same restrictions and requirements on boats, then it's much harder to be effective. So I think this is, if I understand this properly, this is part of this review, is to combine with other councils, Otago in particular, but I think that, if we can expand that over the whole country, ultimately that would be really good. The haul out cleaning facilities, we talked about this yesterday at the Finance and Performance Committee meeting, and the report there, I don't know if everybody's seen that, the report that Botham-Miskell did in November 2024 recommended that we really get on with this, and Dave, who's at the back of the room here today, explained yesterday about the progress that is being made towards that. And I think many of us, including the Field and Marine Guardians, are a bit frustrated at the slowness of that, but David assured us that, for the benefit of those who weren't here yesterday, that is in progress, and we're going to get that sorted, but it is very difficult. There's, you know, a whole lot of parties involved, all that stuff, but I think that's really important that we get on with that and really try and resolve that. So I think those are the comments, Madam Chair. I'm sorry it wasn't really a question, but it was really to bring people up to date and get assurance, I suppose, that those things are happening, the liaison and the cooperation with other councils and the haul-out facility.
Through you, Chair. So yeah, on the National Pathway Planning part, we've had a number of conversations in the last few months before I was away with MPI and Biosecurity New Zealand talking about exactly that. How do we make sure that we join up both the port management considerations as well as the pathway planning that needs to be undertaken with DOC and with MPI. So it is being progressed, but we can provide more update on that at either the next regional services, or we can come back here as part of an ongoing update, because I see one of the recommendations was that we do report back through to Stratton Policy at the next committee meeting. And on the Bluff haul-out, as you would have talked about yesterday, I had a number of conversations in June, with Southport, and David, in my absence, has been talking with ICC. So all of those pieces are moving. It's just about kind of pulling them all back together. So we're likely to go down in the next couple of weeks to talk to Southport about where we could put something. So the conversation I'd had with Great South and them was around what's the next phase look like and what's their 10-year plan, because the existing infrastructure they have is probably going to need a replacement within 10 years. So we're talking about an interim step to include some sort of haul-out that would serve those smaller boats. That's what the Bluff haul-out is always referred to. And then how do we influence their ongoing infrastructural considerations to make sure that there's a new synchro lift post 10 years that actually is set up for a wider range of boats. So we've been talking about both the short term and the longer term with Southport and with Great South.
Right, thank you.
Complex. Councillor McDonald.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I guess I made a mistake a while ago talking about the aquaculture industry that's going to be expand out in front of our horizons on Fobo Strait. I said it's a multi-million-dollar business. Someone correct me, said, no, Peter, it's a multi-billion-dollar business. So the question I'm asking, and I've asked this before, is that we're reaching forward with the strengthened plan, the haul-out facility, and then we're paving the way for this multi-billion-dollar industry that's going to make all these fantastic profits and employ all these people. Land-based ratepayers are going to be funding it all. So I'm just, in the question of fairness, how can we time our run so these businesses that start to set up, which we've been told they're arriving and they're here and they're keen, how can we provide an opportunity for them to contribute to all this that we see in front of us now? Because all I see is a big spend, and I think it's absolutely necessary, don't get me wrong. I think it's absolutely, I believe that the industry should be funding its own programs and its own facilities alongside us. I'm not saying that we shouldn't, but I'm worried about, you probably see where I'm coming from, about us providing all this stuff for the ratepayer and them coming in, setting up their business and saying, oh, well, that's a piece of luck that all this stuff's here. So how can we bring them in for some contribution along the way? It was a wee bit like, my memory may be a bit wrong here, the pump station down at Stead Street. We built the thing and then asked for contributions later. We need to do it the other way around. So there we go. Throwing a rock in the pond there.
Yeah, no, good question, Councillor. Lucy, did you want to?
Yes, so very briefly, there's been a number of conversations with Great South on exactly that. So one of the things we've been talking to them about is their aquaculture blueprint, which includes a broad range of stakeholders that will all be benefiting from an increase in aquaculture, but will also be bearing some of the costs. And so how we move that forwards together needs to be an ongoing joint discussion. But industry around the table in all of that work, Bobby Brown down at Great South did a huge range of industry interviews that fed into the blueprint. So they've highlighted a number of things that would assist the industry, but equally areas where they see they can be contributing. So I think those conversations are moving. We just need to make sure we're in it as well, so that when we're talking about potential all-out facilities, that they know how much it's going to cost, and so that we're going with our caps in hand too. So, yeah, it will benefit.
As long as we have some sort of leverage at that point in time is the key part, I think, Lucy. Thank you.
Also fair to say that once the facilities are established, they won't be free. So, so there will be some contributions to usage.
Just at yesterday's committee, we talked about, we've got some money still in the budget, and that's how the conversation started. That will be to put a business case, still a business plan together, and in that will be how do we fund the facility, because basically there are a number of different opportunities in there, so that will come back to the council prior to, I think, proceeding. So yeah, I think the question, we haven't got that far down the track to actually be able to answer that, but there certainly is something that will be answered in that next business case, or might not be the next. There may be a feasibility report and then maybe a business case after that, but certainly we'll answer who pays what as part of that.
Thanks. Just indulge me for a minute. Councillor Guyton, I've got you next, but I have a feeling that Councillor Roy and Councillor Evans want to speak on this topic. Do you?
No,
something
I'm
else?
related on this topic.
Councillor Guyton, do you mind if Councillor Evans finishes off that topic and then we'll come back to you? You can mind if you like. I don't.
Gee, this is a first. This is a first.
Thanks, Councillor Guyton.
I just wanted to mention on to what Peter was saying, and looking at other areas in the country that have similar facilities. Sure, we're going to be looking at a business plan and a feasibility study and investment into a haul-out facility. But there's also when you go and visit places like Littleton, there's on-land boat storage, there's on-land maintenance areas, there's all of that sort of stuff that is excessive to just a haul-out facility. So lockups and things like that. So there's a business plan. What we need to do is go out and do that feasibility study and ask customers, will there be a need for an area that's fenced off, lockable, so that you can store your boat, work on your boat, whatever, and what sort of rates that would be on top of just a haul-out facility. Because once the boat's out, what are they going to do? Where are they going to do it? There's a whole raft of other parts to that story that we need to look into.
Yes, just on the conversation that I've had previously with Southport, and then I'll let Dave jump in on the conversations that have been playing out since I've been away. So the Southport conversation that Bobby and I had was initiated back in early June, was exactly on that. It's talking about how much space have they got down there, where's the synchro lift currently, where have they got storage, what might there be considerations for in terms of their own consenting and the discharge and the washout and all of those other factors. So that's exactly the type of conversation that we've been advancing with Southport. And in terms of your point, Chair, around who pays, the users pay, so that when they're being hauled out, the bigger boats are currently getting hauled out by the synchro lifts, they're lifted out and moved, and one of the things that is constraining what can go in down there is they haven't got a huge amount of space for where those boats spin to once they've been lifted.
So further to that question, in other areas there's been reclamation that's utilised, and then you look at ownership of current boundaries to reclamation and everything else. So there's a whole raft of things. No doubt, David, you've been through this.
Two things. I think, apologies, I think you only saw the Boffa Miskel report yesterday or a couple of days ago. In there it does talk about most people, when they pull out their boats, they want to do other things with their boats at the same time, and it recognised that in that assessment report. Southport have looking and are looking at where and what could go where, and you'll see again in the report there's no options given in there, but there are a whole pile of discussions of what the facilities are in there. In the meantime, after that report, we've also got the work that was done by ICC around the boat ramp, and so that's there, but I think anyone that uses that will find that area is pretty compacted. We don't have enough space there for that facility as it is, so that will all be part of the next stage. So they are all questions, I think, rightly raised in that assessment report by Boffa Miskel, but we'll certainly come back to answers with all of those things. It's certainly part of the next stage.
Thanks. I've opened the can of worms. I'm sorry, Councillor Guyton. Councillor McFarlane, Councillor Pemberton on this topic, and then we'll finish that topic. Thank you.
Okay, I sort of requested, actually I ended up with the meeting minutes of when this was discussed. Unfortunately, it's under public excluded, so I can't actually, back in 2018, October. So I was just saying I really appreciate that too. Thanks, David, bring that. But it actually clarifies the position pretty clearly where we were at with that, which is quite a positive thing. So I was just wondering, can that be handed around to everyone? But but I can't talk about it, obviously.
No.
Yeah.
But
Not to but from a council perspective, see what we're actually said and discussed, and it's really, it's quite relevant to the discussion today that there's a mandate to.
We can circulate. Do you want the original report circulated at the same time and the minutes, or do you just want the minutes?
Perhaps, David, if you just give us a précis next time you write a report about this, include some of that background. Appropriate.
These 2 pages.
That would be sufficient, I think.
We could also look at what's in there. I don't actually think anything in there probably now needs to be confidential because we've moved through it with action, the agreement and whatever. I think under Lagoima you would get it, but I don't know who makes that decision and how things come out of confidential in Environment Southland, but we can explore that.
It's quite relevant just to say what the council was really thinking.
I think next time we get a report, we just need some of that background.
It also shows that,
Thanks.
I think from the point that this was 2018 and council's turnover and stuff, things sort of get
that's right.
But it's good where we are now, but it'd be actually good for the present councillors just to see that.
The new ones. Councillor Pemberton.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. Thank you. Just a quick statement. I really enjoyed that report. I thought it was actually really good to see a report where you had locals' views being put back in. And I just wondered, is there going forward when we're discussing other issues in council, can we have that approach? I think just sometimes we lose the locals' viewpoints that's directly affected, and I just found that report was fantastic because it gave such a broad spectrum for us to get our heads around the whole complexity of it. So, thank you.
So, Councillor Guyton, thank you for your patience. It is now your turn.
Just a couple of things. The first, to Peter's point, which is very interesting, and it's a great concern to me, looking at a significant industry being proposed or getting underway and looking at some industries that already exist, because it seems to me that industry has the habit of socialising its costs, especially its environmental harms. If you look at agriculture and now we look at aquaculture, I can't see that there'll be any change to that. We'll end up paying, the people will end up paying for that, those costs. But my other point was possibly a minor one, but with regard to haul out and the discussion around unwanted organisms clinging to the hulls of boats. I was listening to a program on RNZ this morning about a phenomenon that's happening around the country now, and that is people sinking their boats. A large number of craft finding themselves underwater through no fault of their own, other than perhaps being born in the 1970s. It's the time when those boats are becoming a bit infirm, and the habit seems to be people take them out and sink them, and if they've got unwanted organisms clinging to their hull, that could prove a problem. And not only people sinking their own boats, but the increased intensity of oceanic phenomenon are sinking boats more regularly than there were in previous years. So whether that's on your radar, whether that's something you've thought about, I don't know, but I just thought I'd bring it up.
Through Chair, I can find out if the team's already considered that, but it's not something I've heard talked about much previously, and not in Southland anyway. It's something that I've worked on in other places, but there was quite a desire for sinking boats to create coral back there. I don't know about the risks associated in regards to the organisms, so I can find out more information.
Thanks. Hayley, through you, Chair, I also note that we have underway the review of our navigation safety bylaw, and we have had recent enforcement action undertaken where boats have sank, and I would note that Lucy's crew and my crew work very much hand in glove with respect to all risks associated with vessels that either have been accidentally or intentionally sunk. We've got a really good mode of operation, and where we have unfortunate circumstances where owners of the vessels have capacity to pay, we have undertaken rapid removal, clear up of the site, and then cost recovered off the back of that. So we're quite active if we can by the owner. So we're quite active in that space. Thanks. Councillor Roy, and then Anne, I'll come to you. Thanks.
Okay, look, I think it's an excellent report, particularly around the surveillance and management and monitoring stuff. My question is really about the preparedness when something occurs. And whilst there is a layout of a management plan on page 14 and 15, if you look at what's happened biosecurity-wise, New Zealand-wide, we've been caught out not knowing what to do when things like mycoplasma and PSA and the kiwi fruit and a whole lot of stuff happens. And I'm just wondering, is this really fit for purpose? It talks about a management plan, not an elimination plan. And where's the crossover and how are those decisions made as to when something shows up? And every 6 weeks in New Zealand, something new comes, not always in water, but occasionally in our coastal area. And I just, like, we're in a management plan with Underia, and I'm not sure whether that was the right decision at the time or not. But my question is, how fit for purpose is what we've got there in terms of a management plan, and how do we determine elimination or management?
Thank you. Through you, Chair. So there's a slight difference between a management plan, which is what you would hope you're doing in advance of a thing coming and becoming a problem, versus an incursion response plan, which is a different kettle of fish entirely. The incursion response plan would be something we can bring back to you and to show you how it butts up against the management plan. I think one of the precursors for this great report and for the conversations about the Fiordland Pathway Plan is that's our first line of defence. Once you get into incursion response, the Biosecurity Act is slightly different than the Civil Defence Act, but the two things also kind of bump against each other. So we do have incursion response plans. Given the other part of my group in terms of EMS, that's the place where those will get response from.
And there's also the Regional Pest Management Plan, which classifies what
which were
what
also
organisms are in which category, right?
Yeah, so all of those things would trigger a biosecurity response as opposed to a civil defence kind of emergency response. But quite often you'd use similar structures and you'd be calling on similar people because you need logistics and planners and so we can definitely bring that back there.
Stuart, did you want to comment on that?
Just in response to Councillor Roy's question, for the Underia first truck in Fiordland, one of the issues that I understand that tripped us up was we never had the ability to be able to quarantine the area, i.e. just stop all movements in and out of that. And so I think if we can have it, as part of the management plan or legislation, the ability to actually quarantine an area when we do discover an invasion, I think that would help matters a whole lot. Because if we had been able to just shut down that particular area at that particular time and stopped all movement, but at the time everyone was going, oh no, we can't stop people coming and going. That's just not possible at this time, and people didn't particularly want to do it. But I still believe after all this time, if we had to shut that down at that time, everyone would have saved everyone a whole lot of money and time and effort to go on time.
I think you're affirming my point.
Yeah.
And through you, Chair, just be really clear about the difference in powers though. So from a controller perspective, when you're in civil defence emergency responses, you absolutely have the power to stop people entering places and areas. That's one of the statutory powers that exist for group controllers and controllers in an emergency response. But it's different for the Biosecurity Act. So that's what Stuart's referring to, is actually there's a different level of powers that sits upon incursion response as opposed to emergency response. But maybe that's in scope for the government changes. Bernetta, I think is waiting.
Oh, sorry, Bernetta. Take it away.
Just wanted to add in response to the fit for purpose question. In terms of the framework, you've got the regional coastal plan, you've got the regional pest management plan, and then currently you've got the pathway management plan that applies only in the Fiordland marine area. And they do work together, and that is one of the reasons the regional coastal plan review and the review of the Fiordland plan are tracking, and there's still the work being undertaken to ensure that any gaps are looked at and that they can be strengthened to have a comprehensive approach. In terms of the pathway plan, it's looking at what are called vectors of pests, so the ways that pests can move into an area and establish. Your pest management plan looks at the pests that you know are in the area and what you can do to prevent their spread and even eradicate them if that's within the direction that you're wanting to take. So there are sort of overlaps between the plans, but as we heard, they're under different acts and they've got different purposes. So it is, the pathway management plan is trying to look at stopping marine pests moving within the marine area. And the Fiordland plan has been on the hulls of vessels and the gear and equipment on vessels, as well as there's a standard around the residual seawater. And in terms of the review, it's looking at how can we expand in a geographic sense protection in terms of that management to other parts of Southland, and are there other ways that we can improve those rules and standards? So hopefully that provides a little bit of a explanation to that question about fit for purpose. Thank you.
Thanks, Benita. Councillor McDonald, do you still have, no, great, good answer. Before we move to the moving the recommendations, I think Anne's got something that she would like to say.
Well, first of all, as usual, I'll start back front. I just wanted to make a wee comment about affected parties rather. Strong partnerships with key stakeholders. That's acceptable to the government of the day, that language, but as usual, I think it's disappointing that that's been used, but never mind. So jumping to the paragraph above that, I'd like to note, congratulations, Stuart, on another term with Fiordland Marine Guardians. I'd like that noted in the minutes, please.
Please do that. In fact, can we make that a third recommendation? No, could not. Just note it, please. Thanks, Anne. Congratulations, Stuart. We're very pleased about that indeed. A number of reasons, but thank you very much for your service.
Yeah.
Right, so I just want to clarify the recommendations, please, because that second one is very specific in its language. So receive the report, the first one, of course, and then the second one is approve the development of an expanded Fiordland Marine Regional Pathway Management Plan in terms of geographic coverage and or content by way of rules, sources of funding, standards and or other matters, and to undertake associated assessment work consistent with the 21 February 2024 Strategy and Policy Resolution as a proposal under the Biosecurity Act 1993. So just be really clear that that's what you are approving today, or not, depending on how it goes. Would somebody like to move those two recommendations then, please?
With that, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rodway, seconded Councillor Cook. Any further discussion? Got that then, all those in favour please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Thanks team for all the work. Thanks Benita. Right, thanks Lucy. 9.2 Climate Change and Community Resilience Portfolio Update. I'm going to join us. Okay. Take it away.
Yeah, sure. Thanks very much. So this report provides an update on the climate change and community resilience portfolio. So effectively, just for the committee's awareness, we've been through for the climate change portfolio, we've created a climate change strategy. It's a regional document that's been around through all the different councils, and the second phase was the establishment of a framework for action. So that framework came through this committee on the 23rd of July, and it's now since been through the Te Ao Matamata board on 28th of July, and then Harbour City Council 29th of July, Southern District Council 30th of July, and Gore District Council last week, and were adopted and endorsed at all of those meetings. So effectively, the next steps for this project is making progress on the actions for Environment Southland in that framework for action. So those actions are listed on page 19 and that's on page 20, and we're in the process of building that into our work plans moving forward. And also, some of those actions relate to the future of that climate change working group, governance options, also doing some inventory work around our carbon emissions as an organisation. So happy for any questions from the committee.
Thanks, Marcus. We've got Councillor Guyton, then Councillor McDonald.
Thanks, Marcus. I read the report about the Gore District Council discussions around your proposal. I presume, were you there?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't at the table at that one.
Or fortunately, because there was a lot of backward comment, I would suggest, about climate change and the actuality of it. And I'm just wondering if, given the present government's retrograde steps, taking agriculture out, a whole lot of things that they've done, a whole list of things that they've done, are you finding that how we started off this program with a lot of enthusiasm is being tempered or challenged by the actions of central government bubbling up through local government and in the general population? In other words, is it getting more difficult, the prospect of succeeding in what we're hoping to do?
Through you, Madam Chair, I think there's always been people that don't subscribe to it or don't agree with the need to work on climate change through adaptation and mitigation. I think that will always exist. It's potentially, maybe we're just going through a phase where there's a bit more people confident to speak out in opposition to it, but I think irrespective of where we're at as a community, there's still legislative requirement to be in this space. And I think the leadership that local government needs to show around climate change exists, and we need to continue forward, acknowledge different perspectives, but effectively we've still got to carry on and undertake our statutory functions for the future of our communities.
Thank you.
Through you, Chair, just to add to that, certainly my experience, and I'm a relative newcomer to this kaupapa at Environment Southland, has been that even if people challenge the science behind climate change, they certainly are very interested in discussing how we might adapt to the effects of climate change. So the conversation rapidly changes to flooding, to wildfire, to increased incursion of pests through to because of changing weather without necessarily talking about why the weather is changing. And so they're willing to good faith engage on that basis. And so that has been my observation. And certainly there was a recent article came out today about Tower, and they've done, if you read their Tower Insurance, you read their publication, it's actually got some quite encouraging statistics. And they've undertaken nationwide research about people's beliefs and opinions on climate change and the need to deal with this now and not keep kicking the can down the road, which is encouraging.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, thanks very much. Just sort of on that topic too, like Robert's talking about, bottom of page 19, next steps 1.2. Just wondering, Marcus, if you could put a comment on that, because that seems to me as being the real meat and potatoes of this group, is coordinating action across the councils to gain efficiencies. My fear on all of this stuff is the climate change stuff affects everybody, affects all our regional authorities. And you'd have one council down there building big fancy bridges and massive big culverts. Well, one council's in the upper catchment saying, well, actually, we're doing all this up there. You don't have to do all that. Why are you over-engineering? Oh, our engineer didn't talk to your engineer, I'm sorry. Maybe we should have, and we could have saved everyone a hell of a lot of money. So on the table now, there's local government reorganisation, whatever the heck that means. But this is it in a smaller version. This is reorganisation and aggregation of services to provide an efficient outcome for ratepayers. So I've just said what I think. Could you make some comment on that 1.2? That's an exciting thing for me. That's where it all hits.
Definitely, and through you, Madam Chair, I think as a collective, we're more powerful than a sum of individuals. So yeah, the opportunities around collaboration and partnering and working together in this space, there's massive opportunities. And one of the things that the working group has been dealing with through the last 3 years is it's only a working group can only make recommendations and doesn't have any power to make binding recommendations or budget allocations, which is the right decision at the time. And I guess that piece of work around Action 1.2 is looking at as a joint committee a better delivery model for governance for this kaupapa, with terms and delegations and powers to require more impetus with the individual agency. So there's differing views at the political tables around exactly how much power the climate change governance group should have, whether it remains a working group and makes recommendations that need to go around the process and get endorsed and approved at each different council table, or whether there should be slightly more mandate provided to that group. So effectively, that's what that action is looking to flesh out around what is the right delivery model for governance in this space for South moving forward.
Thanks, Marcus. That's a great explanation, actually. And I'd chuck in the spatial plan. That's going to be critical to making those regional-wide decisions. Anyway, I have got Councillor McPhail and then Councillor Rodway. Thank you.
Yeah, look, it was pointed out to me. Firstly, I'd like to thank the staff and Phil for presenting this to the councils and particularly the Gore District Council meeting. It was pointed out to me that I may want to have a listen to that meeting and see some of the comments from local ratepayers. And I was actually quite taken back by some of the comments of a couple of the councillors. And I'd like to quote just 2 comments, and it's all public information here. So anybody can go along stream and look online. And this is particularly to ES as such, and this is quoted: "Action isn't a word they understand, isn't even in their dictionary. They don't know what it means." That's the end of that quote. And then on the next breath, "Having endless reports does nothing. I think they're actually adding to the greenhouse effect by the amount of gas they talk." So it sort of stirred me up a wee bit in regards to this. But it actually makes a point that Councillor Morrison had to sit there and he couldn't debate this. This wasn't in the questions. It was actually around the debate of the motion. So I do feel for Phil because he had to sit there and take the brunt of this. But from a council perspective, and I'm listening to the meeting here in the committee, that there's certainly personal attacks to us as a council. Maybe there's a lack of knowledge of what we actually do. And I would certainly be recommending maybe if we were happy sitting down with them and having a discussion about these things. And we can work through a dictionary if we want. But also, there's a due amount of respect when we sit with each other councils. There's an element of respect. You listen to people, but you don't want to, sometimes it's a wee bit annoying getting the finger pointed at you. And I think they should know that there's 3 fingers pointing back at them when they point. So I'm just putting in a recommendation. I'd like to hear people's point of view. Happy to listen to people. It's online, but I'd be recommending that we maybe send them a letter or engage with them in some way, and happy to meet with them, or happy to lead that discussion if need be. Just to sit down and have a yarn with them, especially if these particular councillors have some issues. You put that there nicely.
Thank you, councillor. I'm not quite sure what to do about that, so give me a moment to think about that. Councillor McDonald, have you got a?
Yes, I have.
And then Marcus.
I'd just like to support what Jeremy's just said. Good on you, mate, for saying that. I too read that article, and forgive me, but some of the commentary coming from those councils just straight out of Facebook comment section, I could say. So I've never seen anything like it. So I just want to support Jeremy on just what he's just said.
Can I just ask councillors not to fall into the same category
It's a general
as our yes,
around-
but
not
just
particular.
generally speaking, if anybody else is going to say anything, can we please not fall into that examples that we've been given, because we're better than that. Councillor Pemberton.
Yep, I do support what Jeremy's saying, and they probably will be engaged when it comes to adaptation, I suppose. So that could be an opportunity then to sort of have a meaningful conversation.
Thank you. Councillor Rodway, you're on my list, but is it about this or is it?
It is, well, I can comment on this, but I do have other points here.
Okay, so I've got comment on this, and then we'll go to Councillor Cook, and then we'll come. Oh, it looks like we're going around the room, so. Councillor Cook.
Yeah, thanks. Just a couple of observations. One is that Environment Southland have taken the lead on this project across our region, which is what it should do. That's what our role is. But noting that the recent report to the council said that about 13% of our population do not agree with climate change or the causes of it. And it's going to, some of those unbelievers are actually on elected positions in council, so it's going to emerge.
That's democracy, right?
Yeah, so that's what's going to happen. We're going to get some pushback from a small part of our population, whatever we do. I think we need to continue taking the lead and promoting the project.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Roy Rodway Gibson.
It was very disappointing to read the report. I have a contrary view about engaging with people like that, and it comes from years of engaging with people who, when someone holds very dogmatic views, there are two things that are exhibited. One is they tend to confuse fact with their own opinion. The second thing is when you're talking to them, they're not listening, they're thinking about the next thing they're going to say to you. So on that basis, I just think we need another response rather than engaging with them.
Thank you. Councillor Rodway.
Well, yeah, we certainly don't want to ramp up the rhetoric. It's not a good idea. But if Jeremy would like to talk to them on, a review or something like that, I would think I would encourage that. That'd be good. I do want to endorse what Jeremy said about Phil Morrison. He has done an awful lot of work as a chair of this group, and I think most people know that. He went to all the councils to present recommendations for the strategy and then the action plan, so it was a two-part thing. And also Anka Habgood on the staff. She did an awesome amount of work for that, and the other staff members at the other councils also did a lot of work for this. I think all of that needs to be recognised. And I think as Councillor Cook says and Councillor Roy says, there are a proportion of people who don't believe the science, and so we just have to accept that, I think, and carry on. But I would like, my main question, Madam Chair, was really about the climate change subcommittee. Now, I'm the chairman of that committee, but I think we've only met twice. We might have met. It says in here, the last time we met was nearly a year ago. And I'm just wondering, in the next triennium, for those of you who are going to be here, hopefully I will, but you never know, we should consider whether or not having a separate subcommittee is a good idea. It adds a lot of work to staff. Anka was responsible for that committee, but she was, fully tied up with the regional committee, and so I think it adds a lot of work to the staff having a separate committee, and I would advocate for it to be a standing item in this committee in the future, so that would reduce the duplication and all of that stuff. The other thing, I note the items there, the next steps on page 19 and top of 20, don't actually include, one of them is looking at our third annual organisational greenhouse gas emissions inventory, which is good. But there's nothing there about us trying to reduce our own greenhouse gas emissions. And I think that's I think we should have something in there about that. But not our greatest contribution to greenhouse gas emissions is from the vehicles that we drive around. They're all petrol vehicles, as far as I know. Some might be hybrids. The time is right for us to consider changing to hybrid vehicles, especially for the Ford Rangers and Hiluxes and that we have. They are very fuel heavy, and there are vehicles on the market now which are much more fuel efficient that would be a good replacement. And also the cars that executive staff have and other staff have used to drive around the town. There are heaps of not too expensive EVs or plug-in hybrids that are really, much more fuel efficient. So I would like to see another action there to have the council looking into replacing our vehicles with more fuel efficient vehicles to reduce our carbon footprint. I know that's another step perhaps after the inventory, but I think it's time for us to do that.
Thanks, councillor. I'm going to flick to Hayley because she's got. I can answer multiple of those points. The first thing I would say to put it all around the table, that our staff work very productively in this space with the Gore District Council staff that are involved. It's a very collaborative and positively framed relationship, and we see no reason why that won't continue to endure as we move through undertaking the actions as part of the framework for action. The other point that I want to make is that, yes, we absolutely would consider what the subcommittee, what shape it should take, if it should exist, where does that kaupapa go if it doesn't go into the climate change subcommittee. And then latterly, there is actually work underway on reducing our own emissions. It's early days yet, and is very much actively looking very critically at our vehicle fleet and the emissions from that vehicle fleet. It includes substantial considerations around both capital and operating costs as well, and also has links into work around our vehicle policy. So how many we have, what type they are, how they are used by staff, and that type of thing. That work is being led by Patrick as a part of corporate services. So we've had a number of papers come to executive in early days, and in the fullness of time will be coming to your good and learned selves.
Thank you.
Yeah, I might just comment there that the third annual organisational GHG emissions inventory should show. Yes. Oh, and that is part of that.
Yeah, should show some of the results of the already changing vehicles in potential. So we should come at it from a couple of ways, councillor, rather than adding another step, because it's already in step.
And through you, Chair, it also looks obviously at optimising the efficiency of us using our current vehicles. We want them used efficiently. So he's looking at a number of different factors to pull them all together into a cohesive approach.
Right.
Marcus, did you have a comment earlier?
No, that was a little bit.
Councillor Gibson, I also had an indication from you, did I?
Sure did.
Thank you.
I've been waiting patiently.
You have.
The Gore District Council situation is such that there's a certain portion of people sitting in there, all they want to do is emotive, non-factual information. All they're wanting to do is somebody to respond to them, and then they'll put that in the paper. Then they've won. Starve them of oxygen, let them go. We've got the outcome that we need. The balance of the council accepted the motion. So let's just move on.
Thank you, councillor.
those people can, oh, I was gonna
Yeah, after councillor Pemberton's been waiting, thank you.
No, just to respond, I guess, to councillor Raway, I guess the consideration we have to take into account is our duties with emergency response with vehicles. That is the utmost importance. And much like as governance is reminded, this isn't a flatline business that you has duties and responsibilities, and I think that has to be taken well into account if we want to look at our CO2 emissions and be very clear on our priorities and responsibilities.
Thank you, good point. Okay, so in the back of my mind, I still have the question raised by councillor McPhail around a response.
Just add quickly that there are councillors that shut this down, the discussion when that came, and at the end of the day, as I say, voted in favour. They understand what we're doing. So I should say there was only a very small couple that had a different view on life.
So, councillor, I wonder if you would be happy then for me to suggest that the mere fact that we have raised your concern and our concern here and aired that and debated it is sufficient, because I'm sure the people, our colleagues from Gore District Council will have noted this discussion. And, I think we could, personally, I think that we could leave it here. And if you happen to be at the Howl at the Moon one day, you know, that's entirely in your personal time and you can do what you like.
I'd be happy to do that for you.
Does that
Suggest they join the Flat Earth Society.
stop it? Stop it.
No, I'm happy. I just want it duly noted.
Thank you. I think the fact that we've had the discussion and noted our, you know, confusion at their response is sufficient. So me to be happy with that, we will just move on. Thank you. Great. So after all of that, can we please go back to the recommendation, which is to receive the report? Thank you, councillor Roy. Seconded, councillor Pemberton. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Thank you for your open and earnest contributions. Thanks, Marcus. Please pass on our thanks to Anka and Phil. We'll do that too. Thank you. Right, 9.3, we're just about on time, so let's continue to do that. Strategy and policy and regional planning update. Thanks, team.
This is just an update on the work that Anthony's been working on since we last met. So there's a list of lots of different work streams. The national work stream is not necessarily stuff that we've been doing, however it is. We've had the amendment bill was passed yesterday and is now in force, although there are some elements of it that will, I think there's 2 months before some of the consenting changes kick in, and then 2 years before the insurance against fines provision kicks in. However, there's been a number of changes to the Resource Management Act as of yesterday. So the topics have been listed in there.
Questions? Right.
2 questions.
Sure.
One is in relation to bylaws on page 22. The flood control and drainage management bylaw. What is that?
That is a bylaw that we have that is manages activities within our floodway to protect the infrastructure that we have along some of our waterways. So it's a way of managing activities to protect the floodway as opposed to controlling anything that we do.
Okay, is it the one? There's one that says that you're not allowed to impede drainage on another property upstream of you. Is that one, or is that a different one?
Main drainage.
Yeah, there's some main drainage act.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me, Liz, is this the one with about having bailage between the river and the Stockbank and all?
Potentially. Yeah, so
Not
we're looking at that at the moment. Use of stock on stock banks, fencing, and a range of activities that may impede gravel piles or something.
One other
Yes.
Thank you. But the other question was on page 23 about the dam policy. And I wondered whether this review would would enhance our ability or detract from our ability to build wetlands.
Through you, Chair, no, this is a requirement, and it's just making sure that we've got a dangerous dams policy in place, coming to you yourselves as a workshop and then seeking eventual adoption by the council. So it is a legal requirement. Our proposal, the policy as drafted, is consistent with others around the country. I note that we have transferred most of our functions under the legislation to Environment Canterbury. Prior to that, it was with Otago. So we don't have a huge amount of activity in that space, although we obviously keep the dams register. And we also are owners of dams. If there are specific questions about that, it will be a joint piece of work between ourselves and also with Dave Adamson as well, Lucy. And so it's just a legal requirement. We're making sure that we have a current and legally compliant dangerous dams policy.
So we have a rule in the water plan that allows people to build dams, provided they're not more than
2.4
metres and
a volume, yeah. So this deals with the ones that are outside of that. So there's the height and then the size and volume, and it's for those types of dams. Thanks, Councillor. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, just wanted to ask, just going back to the bylaws, the flood control one, is that to do with the government's wish around the Kanoa funding, that their investments, because they had a strong, that's part of the deal, I understand, that their investment to be protected through strengthened bylaws. Is this part of that work?
We already have a bylaw, and it is just a matter of making sure that it is robust and does protect the assets that we have. I guess the Kanoa work could potentially be part of that conversation, but it's not driven necessarily by.
Oh, okay. I thought there was a connection there because that's a very strong view that they did have, is that they're investing millions into the province and they want their investment protected, which is fair enough. Absolutely, it is. Okay.
Through you, Chair, just to add to that, the ensuring that we have a bylaw that supports excellence in asset management is a core consideration in this. So, yes, whilst that is not the driver for doing this, these are regular reviews that you are required to do and refreshments and that type of thing. That is a consideration to ensure that we are, through this bylaw, supporting excellence in asset management by Environment Southland and taking a broader view. We're also wanting to look at ensuring that our bylaw is reviewed with cognizance of increased impacts from climate change as well, and current farming practice and a range of different considerations.
Just further to that, Hayley, I think we have to get a bit more hard-nosed about this in the work that we're going to be doing over the next couple of decades, and the money that's going to be poured into, and the safety of the region, to say, oh, well, we don't want to upset them by asking them to do that. Maybe we don't. It's been like that. It's been a bit, oh, yeah, maybe we need to get a bit harder around this.
Through you, Chair. Certainly to your point, if you're talking, at the compliance monitoring and enforcement end, we absolutely agree, and they are part of the project team. And I note that we all was very helpfully organised, and in a true example of interregional cooperation, all the territorial authorities came along with us to get additional training yesterday, which I had the privilege of attending, which certainly covered compliance monitoring enforcement under bylaws as well. So we're not just looking at the bylaw itself, but how we operate under the bylaw, and we're doing so in an integrated manner with our colleagues, friends and peers and the territorial authorities as well. We only have two. They have so many. Thanks, Hayley. Anybody else? Somebody like to move the recommendation, please? Thanks, councillor Pemberton, councillor Rodway seconds. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Nice. Welcome Shana to the table. Government Policy and Legislation Monitor. This is always a scary read. Thanks, Shana.
So this policy and legislation monitor provide again an overview of the current and upcoming national policy changes, with a focus on those that impact this organization and the region the most. And we have, as usual, highlighted the changes that have been made, marked them in red for your convenience. So to briefly summarize the activities that happened in this national policy space, we have lodged a number of submissions in the last month. That includes our submission on the national direction and submission on the draft national infrastructure plan. And we have recently put through a submission on the Going for Growth housing growth package, as well as and currently we are working on a submission on local government system improvements bill, which will be discussed with you in more detail later in the afternoon. On the implementation front, as Liz has mentioned earlier, the resource management amendment bill number 2 has been passed and it's now in force. So staff is undertaking a detailed analysis to understand the key implications of the act and help other teams take necessary actions to ensure that we respond appropriately to the changes. In terms of early engagement, staff from biodiversity and biosecurity areas have been working with staff from Department of Conservation to inform the development of draft herd management plan for Wāwhiri. So various actions have been taking place. And that's the end of my brief summary.
Thanks, Shana. Councillor Pemberton.
Bit of a left field question. I've had conversations with Hayley on this in the past around, we don't seem to have a huge amount of influence on where the government lands on a few of these things, but also there's been issues brought up with rules in the past, i.e. Rule 55, you can't work in wetlands, and it wasn't designed to stop enhancing wetlands, but it was designed to stop degradation. Is there opportunity around some of these changes to regulation, i.e. mining within 100 metres of a wetland? Is there opportunity for us to maybe use them as a loophole to take advantage so we could do the right thing, so that would maybe get around us having to get consents for wetland enhancement if we were to use that type of rule? Has there been opportunities looked at just for Southland around what rules do we not dine a ditch over that might help us out, that might not have been intendedly used for? You can understand what I'm saying, because we're burning a lot of energy pushing back. How do we just take the small wins and do what we need to do?
Hayley, through you, Chair. Absolutely. Now that the bill is an act and is an operation, we are working with extreme urgency on precisely that question, to look at their additional abilities, opportunities for us to now, with this act, look at solving some of the challenges that are well canvassed by your good selves and by our communities and by our treaty partners. So that is a live question that a number of organisations are working on, and in the fullness of time we'll come and have a workshop with you about where we see perhaps some of the opportunities might be, and we will work in partnership with Ngāi Tahuki on that.
Thank you. Great.
Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, just thank you. Just following on from John's question too, I see under natural hazards, and I'll read, amendment papers were introduced on the 12th of August, just one day before the debate. So it would be good to know what that was around, but just on natural hazards and maybe the wider discussion, as chair of the regional services, I cop an enormous amount of grief around river management. So understanding these new changes, can we start to find out what sort of wiggle room we have? And I'm just proposing to look at changes that we may want to make in regards to river management. There could be a facility for us to do, dare I say, an abbreviated plan change to help or to solve some questions. And it goes along the same lines. We can sit there and throw our arms up, oh my God, you know, look at all this, and then all we do is continue to react to what's being pushed in front of us. And remember, central government can push a lot of stuff in front of us, and we're just always continuing to try and catch up. Let's see if we can get ahead and see if some of these things can really help us in the region and help. So I'm just looking for the opportunities. I just gave an example, the opportunities within these changes that we could use to our advantage. So it's just a general comment, but if you'd like to comment on that, please do.
Through you, Chair. I mean, yes, very much so to the answer to Councillor Pemberton's question. Absolutely, we're looking across what the new Act provides for by way of opportunity, and there's a range of pathways and action we could take. And then we are looking across the full suite of matters, challenges and opportunities that yourselves have through this committee, others and through the full council indicated, of interest and concern to yourselves and the communities that you represent.
Thanks. And just following, I've just focused on natural hazards and river management. So there could be opportunities within that, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's not for me to say, but it's for us to investigate. So thank you.
Just if I may follow up, Mr. Chair. And speaking to the point around influence with central government, we have had some significant wins for the communities of Southland. Unfortunately, we don't have a perfect score in that regard, but obviously ministry officials are always willing to meet with us, and I think Liz meets with MFE weekly, if not more than that. We often bring our council to that meeting as well, so I'm sure that we have that strategic legal mind at the table, and it's discussed weekly at our executive. I wish I could say we had a perfect score, but I don't think any regional council does in this regard. But that's why we need to look to, well, what have we got new that's on the table that can provide novel solutions to some of our matters and challenges? Certainly.
So, yeah, not having a dig at all, you know, I really respect what the work you guys are doing. It's just where the current politics are. That's all I was trying to state.
Yeah, that's how I read it too.
Yeah, just to add to that too, I guess what we're seeing is just a general shift away from regulation in this space too. So there's opportunities for us to look at all the tools in the toolbox, and we just talked about bylaws and non-regulatory methods and what is our role and how can we assist and the opportunities, I guess, for spatial planning. You know, picking up on Councillor McDonald's point, there's a huge amount of opportunities to look at holistically at options and solutions and not just be regulation focused and try and lift out of that and be a bit more broad spectrum and try to enable where we can.
Stuart.
As part of all these changes, what opportunities does the council have an influence into the proposed national standards program that the government's running? Because my understanding of the national standards is going to give clear direction to everybody with everything, and it's going to basically override most of the directions that we're all heading in. And I'm just wondering I guess I'm asking the question, what opportunities will influence local authorities or councils and such like going to have to influence the outcome of those so-called national standards.
Is that the regulatory standards bill you're talking about, Stuart?
Yeah, well, they're talking about national standards right across the board as far as I understand. So
we have been working historically in that space with ministry officials and providing that kind of community perspective, our partnership perspective, but also practitioner perspective. If we have to operate this, what are some of the considerations that you need to have to make sure that it is effective and that it is cost efficient for our ratepayers, for our customers, so people who are beholden to those standards as well, and so that we end up with eventually at the end of the day something that works for us as an organisation in delivering our services and ensuring that our customers, when they experience that, are having a good experience, they're having a, as cheap as possible, but it is still high quality. So those are the things that we're applying when we talk to ministry officials about when they come up with concepts about how those national standards do work, well, exactly what will happen if you had to go live with that idea, and what would that be like for a customer or a regulated body or person to experience that, to make sure that it's workable. That's kind of the prime thing we're trying to do, as well as making sure that it delivers on the outcomes that this council and its communities want to see for Southland in the short, medium and long term.
Can I just add to that? My understanding is that we just use the coastal national policy statement that once was, and they're talking about replacing the likes of national policy statements with national standards on those various kaupapa. So that's a little bit different to what you were saying. I understand where you're coming from, and it stands to reason we go there. But my understanding is they're going to be setting these standards, i.e. replacing all the policies and such like, and everyone else is going to have to play the game basically, and they're still developing those standards. So my question was, how are we able to have influence or input into those developing those standards? Because it's still just a big guessing game at the moment, as I understand it.
Through you, Chair, the coastal space actually has been one of the areas that's probably there has been much less opportunity for any influence, unfortunately. So not all of these matters are being treated the same by the governments. They have quite divergent processes. Some we have deep involvement in, and others very little. And the coastal area is one of those.
Marcus, did you want to?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, just adding to that point, I guess traditionally the national policy statements have been quite domain focused, and you picked up on the coastal policy statement. There seems to be a trend in drafting moving forward, it's more activity based. So offshore energy generation, minerals extraction, wastewater discharges, there seems to be more sort of prescriptive standards being developed from Ministry for the Environment that take away from the coastal space kanoa as a whole package, and more, what about this activity, and what about agriculture, and what about this, and creating carve-outs of certain activities within the coastal space. So there seems to be just a bit of a policy shift in how the drafting is going. But talking about standards, the Tamara ROI standard around wastewater discharge is, I guess, one of those standards that's come out. That is something that we've brought to council table in the past around those setting a standard for wastewater discharge to water and prescribing exactly what those discharge elements are is something that we've tried to put our perspective in on that, particularly the equity side of things. If it's good for wastewater disposal from municipal disposal versus industry and other things, we're certainly engaging where we can in that space. And yeah, we may not be getting all the runs on the board that we want to, but we're certainly speaking up where we can and bringing ourselves in context to that conversation.
And finally, I'd just add to Marcus's point as well, policy coherence is really important when you are taking that approach. And so that's something that we're also actively trying to, when we respond and engage in these processes with various ministries, to ensure that we and the people of Southland, the whenua and the awa, the moana of Southland, have the benefit of coherent policy development. And it is more challenging with this shifted response, but it's something that we're absolutely alive to. to try and make sure that we get integrated, cohesive regulation and direction at the end of the day. I mean, I guess a point that in my head anyway is that activity-based focus takes away the regionalised input for those particular activities, because doing that activity in Northland might be different to doing that activity in Southland. So that's how I hear it in my head, but that's the concern, I guess. Anybody else? Oh, Councillor McDonald, then come back to me, please.
Thanks very much. Amendments to the Public Works Act. Comment on this, if you could. I see some things down here, and it mentions local authorities have been part of decision making. They're going to get rid of the Environment Court when landowners object to land acquisition. So, yeah. What do you know about this, or any comment on that? I'm a bit concerned if we're starting to push aside public property rights. Did I just say that? Yes, I think I did. So I just, any comment on that, if you could please, Marcus.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. As I understand, they're just trying to make it a bit easier to go through those big infrastructure projects. We've got infrastructure bulge coming through the system, so just trying to make the processes to acquire land and do those pieces of work and putting that infrastructure in. They're trying to make it as easy as they can.
Will we have a decision that says the local authorities, could we expect to be part of that decision making?
I'm not too sure, sorry, Madam Chair.
Through you, Chair. I mean, I do know a bit about this from a previous role. This was often subject to other parts of government's Public Works Act acquisitions. And so you obviously, we have the ability, my understanding is, to acquire land through the Public Works Act. And so we can take advantage of that. But the real question is in the how, and is what the law says. But then how you approach that engagement is critical, in my experience, to make sure that, and part of the rationale for these changes are to make it also easier for those that are subject to a process for compulsory acquisition, and there are financial rewards, I think I don't know what the term is. Incentives, thank you very much, Councillor Cook, for those going early. So it's designed to try and take some of the time out, and certainly having been subject to them before, they can take a really long time. And I do know, speaking to others who have had their property acquired, the emotional impact of the time it takes for these processes is not to be underestimated. And so part of the rationale for those changes are to financially incentivise faster processes, but also get faster to an end decision, be it to acquire or not to acquire. It's a bit of one of those things where there's some good things and some not good things depending on where you are on the side of the fence in that in those processes.
Appreciate your knowledge on this, Hayley. Thanks very much.
Just before we finish, I just want to double check that the workshop that we're having later today is about the local government system improvements, because actually that's the one that frightened me the most when I read through the report, apart from the regulatory standard stuff. So I won't touch on it now if we're coming back to that later on. Somebody like to move the recommendation then, please, if there's no more discussion. Thanks, Councillor Cook. Thanks, Councillor Rodway. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Thank you. Moving to my left. 9.5 is retrospective approval for submission on the draft National Infrastructure Plan. And unsurprisingly, we haven't had a change in seating. You have a question, Councillor Evans? Can I just let the team introduce first? Thanks.
So, we have submitted on the draft National Infrastructure Plan, which will be finalized into a final plan in December 2025. I take that the report has been read. I So maybe summarize. It was led by the Infrastructure Commission, and the key points that we have raised in the submission include the need to include flood resilience infrastructure into the framework, because we saw that that was a significant gap in the plan. And we also highlighted, as Council has referred to earlier, the need to strengthen the role of spatial planning in the space. And lastly, integrating natural hazard mitigation into infrastructure planning and development as an urgent matter.
Thank you. Just reminding councillors that it's a retrospective review, so just if there's anything you'd like to comment, that's great, but we can't change anything. Councillor Cook.
Just a semantic question, if you like. It says in item 8, the council fully agrees to something. And then item 9, it says strongly agrees to something, and then it goes back from 12 to fully agrees. What's the difference in meaning there? Just for my information. Are we just trying to vary the submission, or do we have different levels of approval?
Through you, Chair. I don't believe we have a table which has that gradation of what we believe, but it could well be that we've got to keep things interesting, to keep the official that has the pleasure
Okay,
of
I thought I might have missed
reading
something.
and receiving, unless Shana would like to correct me.
I don't have anything.
Thank you.
Conclusion.
Councillor Evans, apologies for skipping, but over
It's a
you.
random question.
No, thank you, Chair. You know, regarding what you said regarding stop banks and all being included in infrastructure assets. Is this, I commend that this is in here, and hopefully this is a way forward that we're heading, because currently they're not included, are they? And ultimately, at the end of the day, flood prevention infrastructure is just as important as power, network, energy, all of that infrastructure. In actual fact, it's probably more important because of the fact that it affects human life. So, what's the timeline in us including this in our plans and all?
Through you, Madam Chair. So effectively, I guess from an organisation perspective, the flood resilience project and integrated catchment part of the organisation is taking that view that it is critically important. And I guess from an infrastructure perspective, it's easy to think, oh, the built infrastructure is the stop banks, and that is the flood banks, and that is the infrastructure, but it's effectively everywhere from flood bank to flood bank, not just the things that have been built, but the way the river bed, the river banks, the floodplains, that is all infrastructure that supports flooding resilience. So it's not just we built the stop banks and we need to maintain those. It's actually understanding how that whole catchment functions, and that's effectively part of that core work and LTP requirements and operational expenditure. So from an organisation perspective, we certainly have that view, but it's just making that, and this submission is about making sure that the national infrastructure plan is keyed into that aspect as well.
So how can we move through that and get to the point that we have this as opposed to what we currently have at the moment, which is we're not included as those assets as infrastructure?
Yeah, from an organisation perspective, we still take that view that it is infrastructure, and we maintain it, we look after it. We've got operational expenditure, and we're managing defects, and we're certainly operating in that space that it is our infrastructure, and we're operating in that space. So we're not ignoring it from an operational perspective in the organisation. We're very much this is our BAU. We do that thing and we do it well, and it's our responsibility.
Thank you. Councillor Rodway.
Oh, just really to support that, those items set out on paragraphs 18 to 20 in the letter. And Marcus has just explained those, not just the stop banks, but the management of the whole river system. It's really important. So it's very good to see that there.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Great. Somebody on this side of the room like to move that. Thank you, Councillor McFarlane. Seconded, Councillor McDonald. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. And that takes us to 9.6, the update on councillor requests and actions. Bailey, do you want to cover that off? Yes, thanks to you, Madam Chair. So, with respect to the action on managing commercial forestry in Southland, we've noted in the update that the Regional Services Committee recently considered a paper on wilding pines. The minutes I don't believe have come out yet for that, and I seek your forgiveness as I was quite unwell when online attending that committee, and yeah, I can't quite recall what the actual actions were.
Councillor McDonald, do you want to comment on that?
But the other aspect, which isn't in this update, which I will of course talk to, is that we had the recent workshop that included considerations of forestry as one of the policy positions of this council. So our intention is to bring that plus the other policy positions back to this committee as a workshop so that they can be looked at in the round. You'll recall from that workshop there were a number of tranches of policy positions, and so we are getting tranche 2 and 3 caught up to that tranche 1 that we workshopped together, which included forestry. And so there'll be an opportunity to workshop that in the round as well as in and of itself, so that you can reflect back on what you said at that workshop, or at least how staff captured what you said and recorded it.
Councillor McDonald, do you still want to say something?
I can't, on the Regional Services Committee, yeah, it was of wide interest. There was a huge amount of commentary. I got told off for having a long meeting by some.
Oh, I'm sorry I was away.
But high interest and a very large uptake in media, like it is right throughout the South Island, so it's just not particular. So I just want to congratulate the committee for pushing that issue out.
Thank you. The second item. The second item is ongoing, as we've been working with Great South on their aquaculture strategy, and that's part of that, but also part of the aquaculture position statement, which again also come back to this committee for shopping. As a specific item itself, to provide information, we're still working on that. And that is similar to the 2 September items. I need to check in with my colleague Karen Wilson with respect to both of those. And then lastly, speaking to Councillor Ludlow, we had thought that there is, I understand, I just learned, a bit slow on me, that there is a resource centre. I don't know what you call it here, that's what it was called in previous boards that I've worked for, which we're intending to create a folder within that. It's apparently where you already access your agendas and your minutes. So it's Objective Connect, it's a familiar location to you all. So we thought that that might be a better proposal, because who needs another channel to communicate on top of all the other channels that we have to communicate with each other? And also it means that it's monitored carefully and
and
administered by somebody that's already doing that stuff rather than
so it doesn't create additional
burdening
on
somebody's
staff.
staff. Yeah, so hopefully that will work. Give it a crack. Councillor McDonald.
Yeah, just want to say about the September 2024 action, staff to provide further information on the New River Estuary to form part of the workshop series for 2025. I guess we've missed that window, but could I suggest that could be something for a new council here and a new council in Invercargill too, to go and meet on the estuary there at Pleasure Bay. I think it was about 3 years ago. Not forcing anything down anybody's throat, but just new councillors there understanding the issues around that, shared issues around that estuary. So that could be a suggestion. Bus trip could be good.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you, Councillor. Do I see somebody over here? Councillor Cotton.
Well, that was my question as well. I think Councillor Gordon and I are both disappointed that we're going to miss out on these results, because Councillor Gordon asked the first one about the marine farm, I think, didn't you? So we're not going to see that, or do I get that, Hayley, that we're not going to see that before the end of the term?
I'll see what I
That's
can
three
do, councillor.
matters.
but There may be a friends and family invitation in it. I don't know if I'm allowed to do that, depends on what standing order
Yeah, well, they
says.
were asked some time ago, those
Yeah.
questions. I would hope that we might have got an answer before now, or some guidance.
Especially the marine farm one, actually, I think.
Yes, I'll treat that with priority.
Considered for me. Councillor Rodway.
Thank you. Regards to New River Estuary, can I suggest that you contact Lloyd Esler? If you're going to have a workshop and provide information about the New River Estuary, he has a tremendous amount of knowledge about the history of the area, the shipping, what it was like in the past, got lots of really interesting photos and things, so there's a mine of information about the estuary.
And also Dr. Zane's wife, Dr.
Jane Kitson.
Jane Kitson. Yeah, sorry, Jane, to refer to you as somebody's wife. Apologies.
There we go, we could have a couple of speakers out there.
Partner even, I don't even know.
Feminist in you is crying right
Yeah,
now.
sorry. My apologies. All right, somebody,
We received the
thank you, councillor Yeah, joke. Seconded, councillor McDonald, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. It's carried. Oh, and there's no ordinary and extraordinary or urgent business, so that brings us to a frighteningly efficient conclusion. Really nice to have no PE sessions on our meetings late.
Be careful, not going over time, this could become a habit.
Yeah. Thank you for sticking to your topics and doing your korero wisely, folks. I bring the meeting to a close unless Anne's got.
No, only a very quick advertisement.
Oh, quickly, before they all leave the room.
Jane Kitson, now Tohu Environmental, look it up.
Oh, great, thank you. Excellent, thank you.
Madam Chair, you cut me off.
Oh, sorry.
I was going to earlier